all right. I know what you're thinking. Johnny, you're way off point. You're supposed to be talking about living, working, playing, and or doing business in Latin America. That's your thing. After all, the show is called The Expat Files Living in Latin America, right? Well, though that little rant may have gone on too long, it does lead us to the inescapable fact that we have to get the hell out of Dodge. And of course, besides setting up a nice, comfortable plan B for yourselves, your ultimate goal should also be to get a second nationality. That means a second passport. And for many years on the show, I've been talking about how to do that in steps. Always mentioning that the residency and passport programs in various Latin American countries are changing all the time. And always harping on the fact that it's getting harder and harder too, more hoops to jump through. Of course, the traditional first step to getting a passport is to get your temporary or permanent residency first. That's a must. And that generally takes from 6 months to a year to get processed. Then after generally around 5 years, you can apply for your nationality and passport. Of course, there are a few Latin countries where it's not 5 years, it's less. For example, Dominican Republic. Once you've got your residency there, it takes only 2 years or so. Now, some gringos and expats have gone to Paraguay because they have a fast-track residency passport program that allows you to do the whole thing from start to finish in much less than 5 years. However, I just recently spoke to 2 expat gringos, both who came down to one of my earlier Expat Insider seminars, and they went through the Paraguay process. Now they're telling me to get residency is easy, but to get the passport, you have to jump through all kinds of hoops. I was really surprised to hear that. But again, things are always changing. All the more reason to get started right away. Bottom line, when things change, they almost never get easier, except in rare cases. And that's part of the very positive development I mentioned at the very start of the show. Yes, something very positive and amazing has happened in the world of residencies and second passports. It's something that never would have happened except for the onset of the coronavirus. So listen closely, you might want to jot a few things down. Talk about a silver lining. But again, things are changing, so this particular offer won't be around forever. I'm sure of that. Now, this coronavirus thing has completely wiped out tourism in Latin America and the Caribbean islands. That means governments, who are always broke anyway, are utterly and completely starved of cash. Now, before we get deeper into the details of this new passport program, we have to ask the question, why would you need a second passport? Well, because if you do, you'll always have a place to go, and you'll be able to continually travel if that's your wish, no matter what restrictions or barriers are laid down in your home country. Your home country being, for example, the US or Canada. So if passport number 1 is blocked or restricted, then passport number 2 is what you can use to get the hell out of Dodge if you ever need to. And of course, getting out of Dodge should be the end game. For example, at this very moment, when your country, i.e. the US, is in heavy crisis, the government always makes it increasingly difficult for you to leave. Remember, no government wants the sheep to leave the barn, especially when the sheep are sheared to the tune of more than 50% of their income. And for those of you who say, hey, that's not right, Johnny, I only paid 21% last year. Oh, so that's what you think, huh? Just send me an email to expatfiles@gmail.com, and I'll give you a list of about 100 taxes you didn't even know you were paying. All of them adding up to well over 50% of your income. I know. When you first bring up taxes, people think of federal income taxes. And if you're the average earner, you pay between 20 and 30%, right? But that's just the biggest tax out of about 100. Send me an email if you want the list. Now, most people don't realize it, but the U.S. denies and or cancels existing passports every day. So if you're delinquent on your taxes, old child support or alimony, are involved in a lawsuit, just to name a few of the more common reasons, your passport can easily be blocked or canceled. And if you think they block or cancel just a few here or there, man, are you wrong. You might not realize it, but your passport doesn't even belong to you. It's property of the U.S. government. It says so in the fine print right on the thing. Turns out in 2019, the U.S. canceled or blocked more than 360,000 passports. And that's just from people who they believed were late with their back taxes. No proof required. Just a phone call and an order from the Treasury Department, and your existing passport is blocked. So think of that second passport as one of the best insurance policies you can have. But as mentioned, it normally takes, from start to finish, starting with residency, around 7 years. Now, the thing is, most people are optimists and they never figure a financial or social collapse is coming. They think everything in their world and their neighborhood and their lives just continues to chug along. So it really does figure that the most creative, best, and brightest people with foresight and the least amount of baggage too, head for the exits first. Those are people who already have residency in a foreign country, and many have second passports too. So basically, especially since the year 2000, there has been a small trickle of people getting a second passport. But now, there's a sort of generalized low-level panic for smart people who've been sitting on the fence. They see what's happening and they're thinking it's now or never. That's also why there's so much interest in my upcoming seminar. Speaking of those seminars, you should see the high quality of people that come down. In fact, some of the smartest people I've ever met come to my seminars. Some even twice and 3 times as repeat offenders. And I have to tell you, when I first started doing those seminars, it was a bit hard for me to get used to the fact that I was nowhere near the smartest guy in the room. And you know what? Every single person who's been to one of my seminars, they've all got one thing in common besides being creative, smart, and forward-thinking. They all have a burning desire to get a second passport, and some of them have them already. Obviously, they saw the writing on the wall way before the COVID virus thing popped the everything bubble. That's why so many of my Expat Insider seminar guys and gals opted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. When they came down to the seminar, they applied for a Guatemalan residency at the very same time. That means for them that 5-year second passport clock has been running. However, depending on the circumstances, money, time, etc., some people can't or won't be able to wait 5 years, actually about 7, to get a new nationality and passport the slow and easy way. Though some people want or need a passport fast, really fast, and of course legal too. And yes, there are ways. There are also huge passport scams out there too. Just do a search. There are all kinds of companies, lawyers, and expediters that promise for a large fee to get you a passport. But believe me, 90% of them are scams. So then how does the average or above average person weed these guys out? Who can you trust? Now, you long-time listeners know in my 10 years of doing this show and around 970 episodes now, I've not endorsed a single one of these programs or any of these passport services. For one thing, these citizenship by investment programs. Yep, they're called citizenship by investment programs. They almost always involve many trips back and forth from your home country to the country of interest. That means interviews, paperwork, and travel time. That means expensive time off for you. And until just recently, I never knew or even trusted any of the expediters. However, as mentioned, things can change rather quickly in the residency and passport business. So now, after all this time, I've finally found a fast-track passport program that I fully endorse. I personally know and have worked with the attorney who's the expediter for this program. And get this, the really amazing thing is that you could get this new passport and nationality and citizenship in just 60 days. And the icing on the cake? You could do it all online, in English, without any back and forth travel, except for the very final visit to the country to get your fingerprints taken and receive that passport. That's only 1 trip to the country. And from then on and ever after, you're a passport-holding, nationalized citizen of that country. And it can never be revoked unless you do something really stupid like commit treason or get yourself involved in some heinous crime like terrorism or human trafficking. Now, if you're not a good candidate for this, it will show up on your Interpol report. Oh, and that brings up another interesting part of this program. You don't need an FBI report. Now, I too asked at first, how can this be done all online in just 60 days? Well, it's because of an extraordinary measure that's been taken by this country due to the coronavirus circumstances. As mentioned, tourism has ground to an absolute standstill in Latin America and the Caribbean islands. That means governments and tour operators, etc., are completely out of cash. And they know that people who buy into the passport program are going to be people with money because it's not cheap. Though it is a great deal for what you get. We're not talking about millions here. It's in the very low 6 figures, but you get what you pay for. Including this show, right? Anyway, I know the intermediaries, know that it works, and I know you can get it in 60 days. And turns out even if you got some misdemeanors on your rap sheet, that shouldn't stop you from getting your passport. All right, now I want to read you the conditions and details on this exactly as it's been given to me. It starts, Dear Johnny, as discussed, we are now offering a citizenship by investment program which adjusts to special conditions there. This comes as a way to stimulate the economy following the pandemic. The program consists of citizenship within 60 days for those who make a one-time contribution. The process can be done virtually online through the representation of an authorized third party. That's the attorney. The only trip required will be to pick up the passport and naturalization certificates once the process is complete. On that trip, we will proceed to assist in setting up a bank account for the applicant as well. The required documents are as follows. Number 1, your birth certificate apostilled. All right, just a clarification here. You longtime listeners know about apostilled documents, don't you? In short, it's your own state's process of authenticating documents. Number 2, you'll need a copy of your existing passport. Number 3, you'll need a medical certificate. The authorized third party or expediter will supply the forms. That's, of course, a physical. You'll also need an affidavit of income. The forms will be provided also. Number 5, you'll have to fill out a naturalization application. And as far as vetting the applicant, the country will conduct an extensive background check, including an Interpol search as part of the process. Then it says, please be advised that the commission of crimes, with the exception of capital offenses, does not necessarily preclude the applicant from qualifying for citizenship. That just means, as mentioned before, having a misdemeanor or 2 on your record most likely won't disqualify you from the program. So there you have it. Due to the extenuating circumstances related to the coronavirus, a great big window of opportunity has opened for people who want a fast-track passport. And I mean fast. 60 days. It's not cheap, but man, if you got the money, it's the way to go. Because, as mentioned, government residency and passport programs are changing all the time. And for once, in this rare case, it's all in your favor. Now, in the normal step-by-step case, where first you apply for residency and wait 5 or 6 years to get a passport in the traditional way, one thing's for sure, the United States government, Uncle Slam, is sure to lay on some unbelievably heavy travel restrictions. We've got them now, of course, but they're only going to get worse. That's a guarantee. Bottom line, the clock is ticking on getting your ass and assets out of Dodge. Now, of course, I realize this fast-track 60-day passport is not for everyone, simply because it's expensive, but it is another option. Oh, and by the way, if you're married, the cost also covers your partner. So there you have it. That's one of the very few positive secondary effects that's come out of this coronavirus thing. So if you're interested, send me an email, theexpatfiles@gmail.com, and I'll hook you right up with the lawyer that expedites this program. She's a friend and comes highly recommended. Just shoot me an email, theexpatfiles@gmail.com.
South of the border.
You've been listening to the